Hey, it's Dave from CG Shortcuts. Today, we're going to do this. We're creating camera shake in Cinema 4D, and we'll learn how to make it loop. This video was brought to you by Skillshare, where you can get access to over 25,000 full courses on a huge range of subjects. The classes are project-based, and teachers take you through all the steps in creating each project, and when you're done, you can share your work with teachers and the student community for feedback and support. We've actually got 3 CG Shortcuts courses on there now, with new courses being released regularly, covering a bunch of stuff we don't usually go into on YouTube. So if you want to test out Skillshare, there's a link below for a free 2-month trial that will give you access to the entire catalog of courses, including the courses from CG Shortcuts, so you can see if it's right for you. Now let's get back to the tutorial. So here we are in Cinema 4D, and we've got a simple scene set up here with a simple cube, and if we hit play, we've got some simple animation. Our cube's just dancing around and it's got a bit of springiness to it. I've added a jiggle deformer to that. This animation was done purely with deformers. If you want to learn more about those, we covered it pretty extensively in our last tutorial. So you can have pretty much anything in your scene. I just thought it would be good to have a bit of animation to look at. You'll just need to make sure you've got a camera in your scene. We've got this guy here, which at the moment isn't animated in any way. It's just sitting in space, giving us a bit of a locked off camera tripod kind of shot, which is pretty boring. So the easiest way in Cinema 4D to add a bit of natural camera movement is with our camera selected. We'll come over to Create and down here to Camera, and we'll choose a motion camera. And that creates a new camera setup up here. There's our old camera, and this is the new guy here. So we'll click on that, and you can see down here in brackets, it's got motion camera, and all of our motion is going to be controlled with this tag here. This is the motion camera expression tag. And if we take a look at the rig tab here, you can see it's linked to our original camera, this guy here. And this is pretty cool because it means you can add the camera motion on top of the original camera animation and keep everything non-destructive. So you can turn it on and off, or just go back to your original animation. But in this case, we want to add the camera motion. So let's turn our motion camera on by clicking this icon here. Then we'll just come down here and hit play to see if there's any motion applied yet. Our cube's moving, but our camera isn't. So let's take a look at some of these settings here. So we've got our rig tab, our animation tab, and our dynamics tab. There's some interesting settings in there, but we won't go over all of that. We're mainly concerned with what's over here in the motion tab. We can quickly add some motion by using the presets here. If we switch this over, we'll start with calm. If we hit play on that, nothing happens because calm actually doesn't add any motion. So you can kind of think of this as what the cameraman is doing. If he's calm, he's pretty steady. So if we try one of these other ones, we've got Steadicam 1 and 2. This should be fairly stable, but with a little bit of shake in there, as you can see there. And Steadicam 2 has a bit more tilt going on in there. Ego is a little bit smoother. And the last setting we have over here is Dogma Cam, which is just all over the place. And of course we can tweak any of these presets with these sliders over here, so you can pretty easily get a look that you like. But let's just go for Steadicam 1 for this example. That's giving us some nice natural looking shaking motion in our camera. And if we just let this play to the end of our sequence here, we'll see if it loops. You can see a little jump when we go back to the start of our timeline, which means it's not looping just yet. So let's stop that there and see how we can do that. The technique I'll show you here doesn't just apply to looping cameras. It's something you can use in all of your looping animations. The first thing you'll want to do is bake all of your animation into keyframes. At this point, the camera animation is being generated by the motion camera here, but we haven't actually used any keyframes yet. So we need to bake the expression that's moving our camera around. So we'll right click on that guy and come all the way down here to show F-curves. And that's going to pop open our timeline window here where we can tweak our keyframed animations. But as you can see, we don't have any keyframes, so we don't see anything. So to get our object to show up, in this case, the camera, we need to come up to View, down to Show, and turn off Show Animated. And that'll bring in every object we've selected, regardless of whether it's animated or not. And there's our motion camera. And now we want to bake the animation that it's generating into keyframes over here. It's also important to make your animation longer than you need it to be. You can see down here, our current animation is 200 frames long. Let's give it an extra 50 frames. We can type in +50, and now we have 250. So these extra 50 frames will allow us to make a looping transition. You can see if we just move this down here, we've now got animation all the way to frame 250. So we'll bring this back up, click on our camera, and then we'll come up to Functions and Bake Objects. Then we get this window here, and we're happy with that. We want to bake all of our frames, 0 to 250. And we want to bake the position and rotation values of our animated camera, as well as everything else I've got ticked here. And when we're happy with that, we'll hit OK. And now, if we zoom in a little bit, you can see all of those keyframes baked in for every frame of our animation. And because we also had the Create Copy button ticked, Cinema has given us a new camera here, and we can just grab that guy and move him out here, and we'll switch that on. And so we can see this, we'll close that off. And you might have noticed the keyframes baked onto our timeline here. Let's hit play. There's the animation all baked into our new camera here. And it's no longer being generated by our motion camera tag. And now that we've got some keyframes in there, we can look at looping this. Let's just stay nice and organized here, and we'll rename our camera. Let's call it Loop Cam. And here's where the magic happens. With it selected, we'll come up to Animate and down to Add Motion Clip. And this will allow us to save our baked animation as a single clip. And if you've ever used Adobe Premiere or done any editing in the past, this is basically going to give us a clip that we can layer and edit, similar to what we'd do if we were editing film. Hopefully that'll make a bit more sense very shortly. But for now, just make sure that the start and end of your animation is matching in here. There's our 0 to 250 frames, so that's right. Then we want to make sure your settings are matching mine here and have these three unticked. Then down here in the include, we want position and rotation, but make sure you include any of the values you need. Then we'll hit OK. And that's given our loop cam this tag here, the motions tag. And that just lets us know that our animation is now within a motion clip. So now if we right click on our loop cam, we can come all the way back down here, but this time we'll click on Show Motions. And you can think of the motions timeline as kind of an editing timeline. It even looks quite similar to what you might find in editing software. We can zoom out a bit if we click and drag this tool here, and this one here will move our view around. And this guy right here is our motion clip. And you'll see, if we move this out of the way, when we move this, we can offset our camera animation as if it was kind of like a single video clip. Okay, let's put that back to where it was. And we'll move this back up here so we can see what we're doing. So we want to turn this 250 frame clip into something that loops over 200 frames. And you'll remember we brought in the extra 50 frames before, so we'll use those as a looping transition. So let's grab our clip and drag it off to the left here so it starts 50 frames earlier. And you can see we've dragged it negative 50 frames here, so we know that's right. And now we want to bring in a second instance of this clip and have it blend into itself. That still might be a little tricky to understand, but hopefully it'll be a little clearer in just a second. So we'll grab our loop cam motion source here, which is basically that same motion clip. And if we drag it out here, we'll bring in a second instance of it. And all we need to do with that is offset it 50 frames from the end of the clip. So the new end is frame 200. So frame 150 would be 50 frames before frame 200, right about there. And this line indicates we have a nice blend between the two clips, where one kind of fades into the next. So now that we've offset both of these clips, we should get a loop at frame 200. So we don't need the extra 50 frames here. So we'll come back down here and reset that to 200. And now if we close this, we should have our 200 frame long looping camera animation. And we're almost up to the blending point. Just keep an eye out for a jump. And there's no jump, and our loop is looking pretty smooth. So hopefully you can have a bit of fun with this technique with your own looping animations. And if you want to get a bit deeper with this stuff, we have a full course on cgshortcuts.courses that covers the whole process of creating this looping jelly bean factory, where we cover some more complex ways of looping animation. There's a link to that below, and there's also a link to this week's tutorial project files to save a bit of time. That's it for this tutorial. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you want to see in the comment section below, or you can leave a like or dislike. And don't forget to subscribe and click on that little bell icon for more videos and free stuff. Catch you next time.